Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some entitled parent stories and our first story of the day is by RavensArts. Psycho entitled Uber Witch Crashes Our Movie Night Gets Owned. This happened many years ago, but I remember most of it because it was just so freaking stupid, and I briefly wrote about it in my journal. I'm female and at the time was in my late 30s, as were the rest of the group. I used to have a friend, she moved so we lost touch, who had an uber witch of a younger sister, along with her rotten little 8-year-old female crotch goblin. I mean, this kid was such an a-hole and her craphead mom enabled and indulged her. This kid would always take other people's stuff and either mess with it, break/eat it, or steal it, and would throw a fit if you stopped her, causing mommy to get in your face. Of course, Uber Witch never offered to replace anything. One night, a bunch of us, all women this night, went to my friend's house for a horror movie marathon night. We did movie night 2 to 3 times a month, always with a different theme and friends and spouses were welcome. And each of us were expected to bring a snack, drinks, alcohol was optional, and 1 or more movies, usually R-rated. We'd then pick, via mutual agreement, the 3 or 4 we liked best to watch. Suffice to say, young kids weren't allowed. We were well into our first movie and 2 bottles of wine when my friend's front door opens and her Uber Witch walks in. Unannounced, says she is going clubbing and tries to dump the kid on us because we were staying home anyway, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Friend is pissed and refused to watch the kid because, she later told us, A, she's a spoiled, destructive brat, B, Uber Witch didn't call or ask despite multiple warnings, C, this was her time to unwind with friends, not babysit her sister's rotten crotch fruit. D, none of the movies were remotely child-friendly and she wasn't gonna alter her plans just because sis wanted to go clubbing. And E, did I mention the kid was a spoiled, destructive brat? She didn't say any of this, just gave a flat no, to which both Uber Witch and the kid threw a tantrum. Turned out she told her daughter she would be having a fun movie night with Auntie. As they argued, the kid took the opportunity to grab the remote and started playing the DVD we'd paused when they let themselves in. It was the 1988 remake of The Blob and was mine, and started watching. None of us stopped her because, honestly, we were too busy watching the sisters fight to notice. Ironically, we had paused it just before a particularly scary/gross scene where a little boy gets grabbed, pulled underwater, then comes up half melted and screaming before being dragged back under and devoured. Naturally, the brat freaks out and starts crying, which alerts Uber Witch, who starts screaming at us for letting her kid watch. I'm paraphrasing here because this was a while ago and I didn't write her words. Our disgusting movies, pretty sure she also dropped a couple of F-bombs too, then demanded to know who it belonged to. Since I hated Uber Witch, I got up off the couch, but surprisingly so did another friend, who I'll call friend 1. A very buff, sporty girl who Uber Witch hated and actively feared. This was because they'd gotten into a fistfight the year prior, when Uber Witch groped friend 1's fiancé at a party. And no, she wasn't drunk. Then slapped friend 1, who promptly beat the crap out of Uber Witch in front of everyone. Friend 1 glared at her, then said, "It doesn't matter whose movie it is. What matters is you coming in here uninvited, giving your sister crap, not watching your freaking kid, then getting pissed off when your kid again touches crap that isn't hers and ends up scaring herself. Now I suggest you get your kid, turn around, and go freaking home." A smart person would have done what friend 1 said, but Uber Witch was never particularly smart. Instead of leaving, she turns to me and starts getting in my face, probably, figuring I wasn't gonna retaliate because she was smaller than me. She's my height but much slimmer. She was right, but also wrong. I have a temper. Always have. But my temper will first manifest as sarcasm, right up until I either reach my BS saturation point or the dumb butt picking the fight touches me. Then it's game on. And by that point, I don't give a crap if you're smaller or bigger. So she got in my face, screaming a mishmash of oral flatulence I didn't really listen to, nor care about, except a sentence or two. We needed to care for her kid. What the freak? When she stopped to take a breath, I said, "Why is it our job to watch your kid? It's not like any of us pushed her out of us." Uberwitch actually gasped, like someone in a graphic novel, and yelled in my face, "You have a son." "Yes, I do," I replied, starting to get really mad. "But do you see him here?" "No. That's because I'm not a self-centered witch who'd bring him to an adults-only gathering or dump him on others without asking." This really set her off, and like any entitled moron who can't fight, she tried to slap me. Luckily, she fights like a girl. Too bad for her. I don't. When Uberwitch pulled her arm back, people never telegraph your blows. I moved slightly to the side, grabbed her arm, rotated it behind her back, grabbed her hair, then planted her face hard in the nearest wall, pinning her arm behind her back. Dang, it felt good. Uberwitch struggled and cursed, but I wasn't letting go. I told her she had 3 choices. She could take her kid and leave quietly. I could kick her butt in front of her kid. I'd never do that, but she didn't know that, and by this point, one of the others had taken the kid into the kitchen, but I was too busy to notice. Or I could call the cops, have her arrested for assault, then call her ex, who hated her because she cheated, to come pick the kid up. Uberwitch agreed to option 1, but then tried to get my friend to side with her. Once I released her, because family. Friend responded by taking Uberwitch's keys, removing her house key, and telling Uberwitch that neither she nor her kid were welcome in her house and to please get the freak out. The look on Uberwitch's face was one of utter shock, as if she'd discovered someone pissing in her cereal bowl. Uberwitch then looked at all of us for support. Why she looked at me for help, I just don't get, but we just glared at her. Realizing nobody would side with her, Uberwitch grabbed her kid, called us all runts, with a C, especially me, and left, slamming the door. Friend apologized to us. No need, we all knew her sis was an a-hole, then immediately called her parents, giving them the lowdown and warning them that unless they wanted to end up watching the brat all weekend, they'd better get in their car and go anywhere else. Uberwitch had done this before, many times, and to warn the other relatives as well. Uberwitch didn't get to go clubbing and soon after lost custody of the brat to her ex. Don't know what happened to her since and don't care. Update. Called an old friend and here's what she knew. Before moving, kid got better and stopped acting up after the ex got custody. Lost touch after they both moved across the state. Nothing on Uberwitch. I think it is slightly unfair that the kid is getting so much hate in this story. Yes, the kid is acting up and of course, the kid needs to be at fault for what they're doing, but I think a lot of it is just how Uberwitch raised them and the behaviors they're expressing around them that are kind of manifesting in the child's activities. What do you think? Do you agree with me on that? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by littlemissbunnywoman, How My Father Tried to Control Me as a Young Girl. Or, Can I Go to School? Freak no. So I made a post the other day about my father trying to force an arranged marriage on me, and, well, a few people really enjoyed it, and I thought I would share another story about my father. I am a 29-year-old female Vietnamese Canadian immigrant. I immigrated when I was 13, and I am and will always be the first to admit, I come from a very super privileged background. But enough about that. My father is a very entitled person. He believes his word is God. To be honest, it's not abnormal in Vietnamese families. But because of him, I had almost no interaction from anyone my own age until I was near 15 years old. He believed because I was his blood, I was above everyone else and should not mix with the common garbage. His words. Because of this, my view of the outside world was the estate we lived on. It was large, my grandparents lived there as well as most of his brothers and sisters. The estate had several houses on it. But because of this, I never had a chance to make a friend. My father even forbid me leaving the house in the daytime hours because he didn't want me to have dark skin because that would be low class. I was lucky there was a change of scenery when I was 13. My father worked for the family company and had business in Canada that would take years and years. He wanted to leave us here with my grandparents, but my mother fought so very hard every day to make him bring my sister and I with them. When we arrived, it was pretty much the same. I was not allowed to leave the house, I was not allowed to socialize and had a private tutor. My father did not even allow me to study English, and there was definitely no way in heck I would be allowed to go to a Canadian school. I have to mention one thing. My mother was an absolute fireball, completely bad to the bone. She learned a lot of English in school and university and never stopped studying it. She wanted me to have at least a chance at freedom, so her and her bad to the boneness started teaching me English in secret. At this time, I was very shy, but I did make it known I wanted to go to a normal school, but my father was just terrible about it. This went on for about a year. So it was around the end of the first year. I was in Canada, my uncle got into some legal trouble. That's a story in itself, but the short version is he killed a mother and child while driving drunk, like they were walking, and because of family money, got out of it. But because of the issue, my father had to travel back to Vietnam and would be gone half a year. But he didn't want to bring my mother, mostly because he likes women of the night and easier if she was not there. But at this time, my English was getting very good. Practiced with my mother 3 hours a day. So my mom being my mom, the very day he was gone, she had me enrolled at the local public high school. My sister was only 3 at the time, but she had her taking like a pre-kindergarten class that day as well. Honestly, my first real day of school was terrifying, but one of the happiest days of my life. When my father returned from Vietnam, he blew up screaming and yelling, and all my mother says is, "Oh well, the damage is done now, too bad." See, my father would never hit my mother. She may be very beautiful and ladylike, but she was a farm girl through and through. She would happily buy live chickens and cut their heads off, and she actually taught us how to butcher chicken and not be scared of that stuff. My father knew if he ever hit her, that would be his last day alive. But that's my long and rambling story, just some further insight about my father. A lot of it is definitely cultural, but from my perspective, it is very disheartening to see how much limitation there is imposed on daughters specifically. And even when they managed to make it to Canada, there was still that limitation until that father was out of their life, and then they finally were able to start leading the life they wanted to live. All the props in the world to OP's mother. And our final story of the day is by WhoStoleMyCake. My mother loses it over me having a common human decency, helping my girlfriend in need. This happened in mid to late July 2018, just around a month after my mother found out I'm dating. My mother always hated my girlfriend, Eva. Some of you might recall some of my other posts on here. Basically, my mother hates her for how she looks, a skin condition, and her foreign and Muslim background, though Eva is atheist. One day, we were out in a forest. In short, she slipped and fell down a drop. Very steep slope, some 70 degrees, of some 3 meters. In the sake of privacy and anonymity, I won't go into details about the injuries and such. Seeing that it obviously wasn't good, I took the shortest route. The same one, though in more controlled manner. However, still breaking my wrist in the process. Once I got home from the hospital, my mother, although she was intelligent enough to wait for when we are home, I guess, laid into me. How could I do something so stupid? How could I risk so much because of someone like her? How she will break up with me anyway, and how it would be better just to leave because she'd be able to move. Which it didn't look like, and leaving her there would be a crime of not providing first aid, possibly resulting in death. This ensued into a huge argument between my mother, my father, who sided with me, and me. It really hurt listening to what my mother was saying. I was already very shook up from the accident itself, and she basically said that she would prefer me to just leave her there. I won't lie, I was an emotional wreck for some time after this. Today, more than 2 years later, I'm happy to say that this has strengthened our bond. Gave Eva a bad to the bone and in a way cute scar, which my mother hates as well. We're living together, and my mother is currently completely cut off, and soon enough, completely out of our lives. Even though what my mother was saying so early into our relationship, she stuck with me. Truly the most wonderful person ever. This story is oddly equal parts uplifting and disheartening at the same time. To see someone's mother act like that to someone's spouse because they don't look like they prefer them to look like. You know, that's just bottom of the barrel level disheartening. But to see the relationship between OP and their girlfriend continue to grow and blossom out of that controversy, that's one of the most uplifting and cherishing moments you can possibly see on a sub like this. So I'm just glad OP and their girlfriend are going on well, the relationship is in a great place, and in some way they have their mother to thank for that, as disheartening as that is. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So which of these stories was your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing and turn notifications on if you haven't so you'll never miss an upcoming video. Any little thing that you do helps the channel grow so much more. Whether it's commenting, subscribing, or just watching the video, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all next time, right here on the Storytime channel.